Hi everybody! In this video, I will walk you through the application development process and you will get familiar with the application designer and the UDM console. Here is what the application designer looks like. Let's take a look at the bottom panel. The exit button allows you to log out of your account. The version button allows you to find out information about the current version of platform. When you click on the Tasks button, you can see a list of long-term tasks. It can be import, export, restart, and other tasks. On the right, you can see the statuses of these tasks. Let's take a look at the tab bar on the left. The first tab displays the list of environments in the current platform instance. The second tab becomes active when you select an application. The third tab is the security settings. The security model contains 4 levels. The top level is departments. Each department has a list of users who belong to this department. Each user has a set of positions, and each position has a set of roles. And each role has a set of applied roles. This breakdown allows you to fine-tune the functionality of the application. To create a new user, select the required department, then click the Add User button. In the opened window, set a login and password, then click Save. After that, the new user will appear in the list. Now, you need to select it and configure positions for it. In the end of this process, the user must have the applied role All. This applied role is a global role that allows you to configure the necessary functionalities of the application and test them at the initial stage. The next tab is Administration and Logs. Here you can find the platform parameters, properties, and various additional settings. This is where you can also find server logs, where you can view information about the recent user activities. To open the server log file, go to System Monitoring, then Server Logs tab. The next tab is the language settings. Next is the Debugging tab, where you can perform debugging of application objects. And the last tab is the VCS tab, which stands for Version Control System. On this tab, you can work with the application revisions in the platform repository. Now that we have a user, let's create a new environment. For that, go to the first tab and click the Create button. If you're just getting started, name your environment as test_environment_your last name. In the owner field, specify your user login. After clicking Save, your environment will appear in the list of environments. An environment is simply a container that groups applications visually and technically. Such a breakdown allows several users to work in the same platform instance without interfering with each other. In order to create a new application, click the Create button. Enter the application name and alias. Alias is the name that will be displayed in the form runner. And again, specify your user login as the owner. If this is a training application, then check the box Launch Application in Debugging Mode. This mode allows you to call the UDM console in the user interface and debug some processes. Later we will talk about the UDM console in more detail. In production applications, this box should be unchecked. After clicking Save, your application will appear in the list. To start editing it, double-click on its name. When you open the Application Properties tab opens by default. Here, note that the application has 2 states, stopped and launched. Only launched applications can be displayed in the form runner. Now let's take a look at the top panel. The first tab is Objects. It displays the structure of the application. And a model named main is created automatically. You can either work in it or create your own models. There is also a drop-down menu that contains objects that can be added to the application. The module and package are very similar objects, but they still have some differences. A module acts as an independent object that can be exported separately from the parent application and imported into another application, while a package only visually groups objects in an application. Other objects such as batch of packages, process, type extension, classifier extension, form, and so on will be discussed in later lectures in more detail. Also, you can learn more about these objects in the platform documentation. The next step is errors. If your application contains any errors, they will be displayed here. The Relaunch button allows you to restart the application. Note that you must restart the application every time its model is updated. A model is updated when you create, modify, or delete a type attributes, the second and the subsequent processes, or process attributes. During the relaunch, the running application is stopped, synchronized with the database, then validated and launched again. During synchronization, physical tables are created in the database. They are given physical names, and we can also see this in the application designer. The export and import buttons allow you to export and import objects, such as application distribution files, modules, types with data, forms, processes, and other objects. Export and imports are performed to move objects from one environment to another. Now let's take a look at a ready-made application. For example, the CRM system application. It has a micro-modular structure. This means that it contains several modules, and each module has its own functionality. For example, the client module contains data of clients, and the services module contains data of services. Also note that application objects are grouped by type by combining them into packages. In order to go to the form runner, click on the link to Application Instance in the Application Properties. Here we see the forms in the interface process. An interface process is a process that is started when a user session is created. So if there's such a process in the application, the system checks for the user who has just entered form runner, then checks whether there is a running instance of this process. If there is a running instance, this instance is resumed. If not, a new process instance is started. In our case, a new process instance has been started. We see its forms and can test it and continue working with it. Now let's talk about the UDM console. You can use the UDM console only in an application in which the Launch Application in Debugging Mode box is checked. To open the UDM console, press Ctrl-Q in the form runner. This console allows you to debug the current process. Here you can monitor the structure of the form, access various properties of form widgets, perform profiling, and test various UDML functions. For example, the today function returns the today's date. Also, you can access the form context or the process context depending on the application settings.